In order for Syracuse to pull off the upset tonight, they're going to have to slow down Pitt's pass rush.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on this week's Poll Friday on a Thursday, that's right, we're doing this on a Thursday because Syracuse football takes on Pitt tonight on the road at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, looking to pull off another upset, get to 6-1 on the season, potentially 3-1 in the conference, and establish themselves as a contender in the ACC. And folks, we're breaking down the biggest key for Syracuse to pull off said upset. And in my opinion, it is slowing down Pitt's pass rush. But before we get to that, let's get to the choices of this week and the results from the poll. All right, so the three choices I gave on this week's poll were containing Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid. That's their dynamic quarterback and running back duo. Slowing the Pitt pass rush. That's the one that I believe. And special teams. I think special teams is always going to be a key for Syracuse football because we have seen at times it not be so good during games, right? So got to have good special teams. But what is the biggest key for Syracuse to knock off Pitt tonight? Well, the results are in. There were 180 votes this week, and the winner was containing Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid at about 50% of the vote. It was over 50% actually. In second place, it was slowing down the Pitt pass rush, and in third was special teams. Later on in the show, I'll explain my reasoning behind Eli Holstein, Desmond Reid, and why I ultimately really didn't pick them or why I don't think it's the biggest key. But for me, I switched my pick. I was with you guys on this until the Trevor Pena injury. Just hear me out on this because I think it's slowing down the Pitt pass rush. Pitt is top 5 in the ACC in sacks per game with 3, right? And we talked about earlier in the week how it's not just one guy on Pitt's defensive line or Pitt's linebacking unit. They got 5 guys who have at least 2 sacks. So there's more than one that you're going to have to worry about tonight for Syracuse. The reason why I switched my pick is because Trevor Pena is so key to Syracuse's short passing game. And a short passing game is a fantastic way to slow down a pass rush because you're getting rid of the ball quickly. The offensive line doesn't have to hold up for as long. Therefore, by default, you're slowing down the pass rush. So that's why, to me, having Pena out makes it so that slowing down their pass rush, in my opinion, is the biggest key in order for Syracuse to win this game tonight. It was going to be a big key anyway, but when McCord targets Pena 35 times within 10 yards and completes 31 of them, over 88%, that's a great way to mitigate a team's pass rush. But for tonight, I'm not so sure how the short passing game is going to go. Now, of course, Syracuse, we talked about yesterday, still got plenty of weapons. How is the short passing game going to go? Is Syracuse going to have the time to be able to hold the ball for more than 2 seconds in the pocket and throw the ball 15, 20 yards down the field? Are they going to have the time to do that? That's for us to find out tonight, right? So, in my opinion, the biggest key in order for Syracuse to pull off this upset is slowing down Pitt's pass rush. If they can slow down the pass rush, the loss of Trevor Pena shouldn't really hurt them too much because they'll be able to really push the ball down the field. Now, coming up, we'll go over the other options, and I'll give my prediction. I'm sure a lot of you guys are NFL fans, and you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And let's talk Syracuse football, all right? They're back to being 5.5-point underdogs at Pitt tonight. It was 6.5 yesterday, 5.5 before that. So the line is shifting back and forth here, but Syracuse's money line, by the way, was plus 172 yesterday. 166 or 168 the day before. Now it's at plus 176. So you can get even better odds on Syracuse football with their money line moving in their favor. Or not their money line, their point spread moving in their favor. Very interesting there. But anyways, Syracuse football is a road underdog, just like they were for UNLV, and they pulled off that upset. Hopefully we can get the same outcome as that game, and you can check those odds out on FanDuel. They keep on shifting, so check them out now, right? That's FanDuel.com. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in place. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need a win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which players aren't going off. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. And I'm looking on the PrizePicks boards right now, and specifically in college football, and more specifically Syracuse football, and Kyle McCord more or less than 326 and a half passing yards tonight at Pitt. Personally, I think he is going to have more than that total, but you can voice your opinions over at PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So in my opinion, the biggest key for Syracuse to pull off an upset at Pitt tonight, once again, the two squads are facing off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern in Pitt. The biggest key is slowing down their pass rush, in my opinion. But the one that won this week's Poll Friday on a Thursday was containing Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid. Now, Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid have been a dynamic duo at the halfway point of the season for Pitt. They have been fantastic. Eli Holstein, he could be an all-ACC quarterback. Desmond Reid can be an all-ACC running back. But here's the deal. This is why, in my mind, really, it's not the biggest key. Ideally, they do shut them down. Ideally, they slow them down. But it's not the biggest key because let's say Pitt scores 35 points tonight. Now, I could be wrong. But if Pitt scores 35, I don't think that's necessarily a death nail for Syracuse. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think Syracuse can win a shootout type of game where even if Eli Holstein has a big day, even if Desmond Reid has a big day, even if they both have big days, Syracuse can still find a way to win the game. What is the magic number to defeating Syracuse in this one? I think it's probably more than 30 at least. All right. So, yes, Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid are a fantastic duo. Ideally, Syracuse can slow them down. But even if they don't, I still think Syracuse can win this game. It's kind of like how last week, if you look around the ACC, Miami knocked off Louisville, right? 52-45. 52-45. Like, you can win that way. Maybe it's not sustainable long-term, but you can win that way. And I think Syracuse is one of those teams where they can win a shootout type of game. They could do it. So that's why, in my mind, it's not the biggest key, but it's certainly a big key to win. I think slowing down the pass rush is the most important. The other choice was special teams. It's a very general key. I understand that. But look, we know how shaky at times this special teams for Syracuse has been this season, and Pitt is not the team you want to give extra possessions to, right? We know they have a great offense. Don't give them the ball more than you have to. But honestly, Syracuse can mitigate this flaw of theirs by a couple of options. Number one, well, don't punt. Don't be forced to be put in a situation where you have to punt. And number two, we saw this in the NC State game where they were hyper aggressive in the plus side of the field, meaning they would go for it in situations where the logical choice is to kick the field goal, right? 4th and 5 at a team's 20-yard line. I don't care what analytics say because analytics can be flawed. Analytics can be wrong. There's a reason why Brandon Staley isn't the coach of the Chargers anymore. right? 4th and 5 at the 20-yard line, you got to kick a field goal unless you absolutely must go for it. There are certain situations like if you're down 14 in the fourth quarter, right? But other than that, you got to kick a field goal. But oftentimes, Syracuse football was hyper aggressive and they would go for it. So that's one way. That's another way to mitigate special teams right there. Being more aggressive. And I said after the game in my big picture takeaways against NC State that I support the strategy going forward because I think I just trust this offense more than I trust the special teams. But still, if Syracuse is in a situation where they got to punt, they got to execute those punts. If they're in situations where they're absolutely forced to kick a field goal, they got to be able to execute that field goal, right? So special teams, another important key for Syracuse to knocking off Pitt tonight, all right? So those are, I think, the three big keys: slowing down the Pitt pass rush, containing Eli Holstein and Desmond Reid, and Syracuse special teams. But overall, I would say the biggest key is slowing down Pitt's pass rush, okay? So let's get into the prediction time. I said it yesterday. You'll hear it on the squad episode, which is coming up tonight. I'll tease that in a second. I'm picking Syracuse to win this one 34-31. I think this is going to be a tight game, but I think Syracuse is due. I think they're due because they haven't won at Pitt since 2001. That's a long time. That's 23 years. That was before I was born. It is time for Syracuse to beat Pitt on the road. It's time. And I think they can do it and assert themselves as a contender in the ACC because I'm hearing a lot of Miami. I'm hearing a lot of Clemson. I'm hearing a lot of SMU. The winner of this game is going to be that fourth team that we put in that category. And I hope it's Syracuse. I'm picking Syracuse 34-31. Leave your score prediction in the comment section below. You think Syracuse is going to pull off the upset, or do you think Pitt once again is going to maintain their home winning streak over Syracuse? Should be a fun one. I'm picking Syracuse to win. All right, as far as what's coming up, right? Don't forget, ACC squad episode is still coming out tonight. I believe it'll be out at 5 p.m. Eastern, so it should be out before the game, but be sure to check that one out. Syracuse also, I've said this before, you probably know by now, but they take on Pitt tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a fun game. There will be a post-game reaction show on this channel, so stay tuned for that. All right? Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I'm dropping the next podcast. And I will see you all later tonight.